Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of the Bloody Legends with Jai That Aussie Metal Guy and Jim Taylor. Make sure you're a bloody legend and hit that like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with all the great content from these bloody legends. There we go.
Here we go.
Hey, how you all going? Let's dive into it. It's Jai That Aussie Metal Guy here. One half of the bloody legends and the other half is all the way across the world. My awesome co-host Jim Taylor, who is actually at a gig at the moment. And then we have very special guest Dave Perry, drummer extraordinaire, and also Fear of Water, his solo project. Cheers for joining me.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
No worries. Absolute pleasure.
You, sir.
Jim was just giving a shout out. Who are we sponsoring tonight, Jim? Who
my good friends at Relax Lounge. I play here. They have great food. They're here in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, and they're kind enough they have a couple rooms back here that are kind of private, and they let me bring my microphone and my beer back here and do what we do.
What's the signature dish at Relax?
It's really hard. It's funny because they have everything from steak. They're the family that owns the place is Greek, so they also have like souvlaki and things like that are like Greek based. But they've got this menu that is unbelievable. Like they have like stuffed shrimp, and they have things like edamame and things like that. So and
nice. A little bit of everything. Cool.
Their beer list is like 25 to 30 deep. It's great. So it's amazing. It's amazing, brother. But thank you for being on here, man. This is great.
Hey, happy to do it. I love the energy and the vibe with you guys. I know that I'm supposed to be here to be interviewed, but I'm super curious. How do you guys know each other? How are you doing this on the other sides of the planet at the same time? How did that come together?
Well, actually come together, through an interview through a friend, a mutual friend, your PR contact, Shauna O'Donnell.
And Shauna, we trust, man.
Hit me up to interview this band called Len that had a guest drummer Morgan from Seven Dust, and then I ended up having to chat to Lenny here from Infinite Staircase, and now fronts Lenny, and that Leonard's an absolutely amazing guy. I had a great interview with him. And then we ended up doing another interview, and he brought along Jim for the second one. Indeed. And then we ended up just hitting off, connecting, and then having this podcast where we talk to musicians, artists, whoever wants to take the time to chat with us. And today we have you, Dave, to talk all about your career, not only your solo project, Fear of Water, which is the main focus, but I'm keen to know more about you as a musician and as a person, because I did read a couple of things in the presser, as you do, being in media and that. And I did read somewhere that you kind of were born clinically deaf. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, very, very much so. Born clinically deaf. So I don't know medical jargon, so I'm going to kind of just dumb it down. But essentially in the womb, in utero, I was, a lot can happen in our development process, and I'm thankful that, I came out. It could have been a lot worse. I'll just say that right off the bat. I don't have like spina bifida or anything like that, but there was some sort of series of infections that was happening before I was even born that was developing into, it was manifesting in multiple different ways, including hearing issues, damaging my inner ear canal, the eardrum, the fine material fibers that are in there that your hearing relies on. So I was basically born with really advanced double ear infections, and that just continued, and it went unaddressed for a while, because it's in an internal infection like that with a human who is not able to communicate like, this, like I have pain here, and they have to go through all the steps of like, are you deaf? Are you on the autism spectrum? Like there's so many reasons why a baby might not be responding to auditory stimuli. And even once they did identify what was going on with me, it was such an advanced thing that it took a really long time to get basically the infections that I was dealing with under control. Had to go through multiple different surgeries and went through and took this very hardcore medication that in the 80s was FDA approved, but is no longer FDA approved because it was causing like the deterioration of like pretty critical materials in the body, like the discs
my
between your
God.
spinal cords and stuff like that. And, you know, thinking about this, I would rather be in a wheelchair and able to hear and make music than deaf and completely able-bodied. So it's like, I'm glad the pill's not on the market anymore, but if it's what helped me get to where I am now, I'm okay with the risk essentially. But you know, I went through many years of speech therapy because the human brain is a sponge that goes through different phases, critical development phases that we all are supposed to go through. And when you get past certain phases, it's you're starting to deal with a deck that is short multiple cards, right?
Yep.
And I was getting to the point where neurologists and doctors were worried that I was going to be able to adapt language skills. Like, so my hearing was being repaired and I was getting back to the point of you know, to have functioning hearing, but this is at a point where like kids could like obviously speak, but then like write their name and do basic arithmetic. And like, so this had such an impact on my entire life in terms of my entire childhood that I began my developmental process around 6 when everyone else is like so far. I mean, you think about the human journey and everything you cover from newborn to 6, and I'm basically starting at 6. It was tough, man. And like a lot of what I went through, you know, talking to my doctors at the time and retroactively going through this with I have some neurosurgeon friends. They say it's very analogous to like what they go through with stroke patients and people who have had like severe head trauma. That just once you get to a certain point, it's incredibly difficult to like form those synapses that should have happened during key developmental phases. And getting like fully immersing myself in music has been a critical part of unlocking those pathways. I think that the most analogous way I can explain it is that anyone who has experimented with large doses of psychedelics and have experienced things that just like didn't make sense before. Like if I told you that a different color existed, you may think that you've seen all the colors, but then I tell you there's another color that I don't have a name for, and I can't point to anything in the room that has it, but trust me, it exists. My cognition, my absorption, my engagement with music of various types, actually starting with jazz, physically and emotionally unlocked so much of my brain that later in life led to my cognitive faculties coming back online. So I basically went from like, I mean, I failed every single grade throughout grade school. And then as my relationship with music developed, I, you know, quickly became like a dean's list, you know, student and going to college on a ride. And like, you know, I owe a lot to music. Has given me so much early in my life that I knew. I felt very, I don't necessarily believe in destiny, but it felt like a life purpose has been identified to me early on, and it would be foolish and just selfish for me to not hear the universe telling me that and to fully lean into exploring as much as possible. So I started teaching myself as many instruments as possible and just really dedicating as many aspects of my life to music as I could, and still going strong many years later.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that has given you that structure and probably given a hell of a lot back to you as well in general. And I'm glad you got the proper diagnosis, because my niece has autism, and some of the side effects you were saying, it took them forever to kind of get that right diagnosis, because as you said, people don't realize, you know, how much that these as well, you know, and having that now, even back then when you were younger, it would have been a hell of a lot worse. We were kind of like the test dummies for our generation. I'm glad things have come a long way, but it still takes a fair bit of time to get the proper diagnosis. But that being said, as you were kind of coming out of that, I could hear your love and your passion for music. Tell us, what was your earliest memory associated with music? Tell me about that, kind of, you know, because for me, I was always listening to my mum or stuff going through the house. But for you, what was your earliest memorable moment with music?
So it's an interesting question because my earliest memories of music, I didn't know it was music. And let me explain that. So So when I say that, so I was clinically deaf in the same way that like if I took my glasses off, I don't know what your prescription is, but if you're like me, your eyes are kind of fucked. And you know, like I'm not supposed to drive a car. I would never want to get behind the wheel of a car without wearing my glasses. It would be dangerous for everyone involved. Hearing wise, that's a good analogous way of looking at it. Whereas like everything sounded like Charlie Brown's parents, you know, like super underwater. So I had like literal functioning eardrums, but everything was horribly distorted. It was not decipherable in any way, shape, or form. So for all intents and purposes, I was, you know, like clinically deaf in that sense. So my earliest memories of music, I'm actually fortunate enough to have them on like VHS tape. And what would happen? So my mom, many generations of my mom's family are tremendous musicians, even like family, like traveling family bands. Like this is like 5-6 generations ago. Like the Jones family would go from like town to town performing for their dinner, essentially. Like that's how the whole, I mean, even the kids, you know, you have like the 4-year-old playing the tambourine or whatever. This is like literally like genetically divined into my family. So my mom is an incredibly musical person and has encouraged music development in all of us. And my earliest memories I have are, I could like feel frequencies, and my parents could tell that I would get excited sitting next to a speaker or something, or like I liked sitting on the ground and like hitting pots and pans because like there was this like vibration aspect of the music that I was like responding well to, even though again I didn't understand what music was in terms of it being like an art form or entertainment or something. Everything was literally just like vibrations. And what I started to realize early on is that my mom was having this like conversation of, again, I didn't know what was going on, but I realized that what she was doing something with her mouth that the speaker is doing at the same time. I didn't get that she was like singing along to a song. I thought that this was literally like a conversation. So there's video of me at like 3, Born in the USA by Springsteen is playing. It's on my birthday. I'm eating cake. My ears are still totally fucked at this point. And my mom says, do you like your cake, Dave? And my response is, ha, 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 is that I started singing back to people what I heard. I understood that my mom was doing what the speaker was doing, and I thought that that was communication. So I started communicating that way, where someone would say something to me, I would hear the pitches of the vibration, and I would parrot it back to them. And there's tons of video of me doing this as a kid. And I didn't realize that even that early on, I was forming a relationship with music and this kind of call and response thing, and an understanding and a connection with like frequencies and whatnot. So when my hearing actually did get restored and I got a clean bill of health, I immediately strongly gravitated towards this huge variety of music, a lot of instrumental stuff, soundtracks. Jazz is the first kind of music that I was really into. And again, in no way that I could articulate. I wasn't like, the brass section is great, or 5/4 time signatures are my jam. It was just, there was something about the like frenetic, expressive nature of jazz that instinctually I was connecting to when I first started hearing it. And then that went into like Lee Ritenour and Pat Metheny, and like just like interesting music is something that I really, and I'm a kid, I'm like a 7-year-old that's like, I like, you know, music that is very much so not for me, from, you know, my generation, not for kids. And but anyway, yeah, to answer your question, it was this like these core memories that I have of connecting with music in a like true communication based way, even though I didn't realize that it was music. So there's a lot of silver linings that came out of this illness that I was born with and fought. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
You're a emulator.
Yes. Yeah.
You like not the I hope I didn't sound like an asshole.
No, I know exactly what you mean. Yes. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Because when you said you heard your mother's voice, da 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 da, and like that's really interesting. And then like, would that translate to the way, like?
So I learned everything by ear currently now. It is the way that my brain, just the way my brain works. And I have several friends who I consider to be like savant level musicians, but very classically by the book trained. And it's interesting talking about how we hear and interpret music, because it's like, we could not be speaking more of a different language about the same subject. It's really interesting. And that's what's so cool about music is that, and then you have that third category of people who have no musical acumen whatsoever, but they like emotionally resonate with a song because of the instrumentation, the expressiveness of it, the lyrics or whatever. But it's so interesting that you have these like 3 and maybe even multiple other groups who can all dissect and interpret and interact with the same piece of art coming from completely different places. I think it's pretty great. But if you gave me a piece of sheet music and held a gun up to my head and say, play 2 lines of this, my brains would be all over the wall back here because it's not in my skill set.
But no, it's okay.
Wouldn't that kind of be in part coming like out of, you know, having your hearing back? People don't realize how you try and cover your ears up for a few days, and as you say, you know, not be able to converse with someone, then you realize, even just for a few hours, you realize how important hearing is, and coming out of that and hearing all these the music, the sounds, and everything like that, you would have probably just been trying to consume as much as you can. And then you were talking about these jazz musicians and artists, and you can really hear that beat through it as well. Is that kind of where a lot of your love for drums and that side of things came from as well?
100%. Yeah, that's a good insight there. It definitely started with drums, even though there's not like necessarily a melodic component to, you know, drums in a band sense. Actually, I got forced into percussion. So 4th grade comes around, we have the opportunity to try out for band if we want to. My hearing's back at that point, but cognitively, I'm so far behind everyone else. You know, and I need to really, like, I couldn't tie my shoes. I couldn't read an analog clock. I couldn't remember the difference between right and left. I had no short-term memory. Like, I truly was operating on like a brain injury level. I failed every single grade. And in my school network, it was like up to the parents every year of like, do you want us to hold him back or push him forward? And my parents, for better or for worse, was like, weighing all of that out, we want him to keep moving forward, and we hope that he gets caught up instead of feeling left behind. And I do think that was the right decision. But anyway, so 4th grade comes around, get the opportunity to try out for band. I really wanted to play sax, and that was probably rooted in my initial love of jazz. I just thought it was the coolest expressive instrument. And the tryout for band is that everyone gets a plastic song flute, a recorder, and with 3 holes on it, and you learn to play like hot cross buns or Jingle Bells or something like yes. And I fucking failed so hard. Like, I just could not do it. The hand-eye coordination, the understanding that like the note on this line has this value associated, which translates to this dot. Like, I did not have a functional brain. And I just, my band teacher, remember his name was Mr. Hotz with a Z. He could tell how frustrated I was. And he could tell how much I wanted to play music. And he could tell that music was important to me. And he did a great job of having a pretty adult conversation with me, even though I'm like 7 or 8. He just said, like, listen, if you are frustrated, if you are this level of frustrated with this 3 notes recorder, a saxophone is going to make you abandon a relationship with music for forever. And I'm so glad that he was like shot me straight like that. He's like, I'm gonna put you in the percussion section, which I know you probably feel is like the furthest thing away from sax that you could probably do. And I was initially very resentful about it, but like the first week of band where I realized that the percussion section is like the driver's seat for the 80 people in front of you, and that they're following your lead, and that there's something like, I wouldn't have articulated it this way when I was 7, but I still understood that there was almost like a tribal raw component. Like, there's literally like, again, it comes back to frequencies. That's like, I'm the loudest person in the room. And yeah, dude, exactly. Yeah. Like, I really connected with that very early on, and it quickly changed the way, like, around this time I'm discovering Nirvana and listening to Nevermind all the time. And even though you think of Nirvana and the first thing that pops in your mind is Kurt Cobain and the songs and the lyrics and the melody, very quickly my perceptive, before I even knew who Dave Grohl was, I was like, no, I know that I love this because of the drums, because it's just like punching me in the face in the best way. And I started listening to more and more music through that lens. I was huge into Aerosmith when I was a little kid, and I, you know, those songs as well. Again, Steven Tyler's signature, you know, super unique, talented vocalist. There's so many good things to say about Aerosmith, but at that time I was realizing it's this snare drum that's cutting through the mix every single fucking time. It's the swing beat of Ragdoll. It's stuff I started realizing, like, this is what my heart is connecting to, even though I couldn't articulate the specifics of why. And when I started to experience, like, to make achievements in progressing and learning drums, it like when I learned like March of the Pigs by Nine Inch Nails is in 5/4. And it was really difficult for me to figure that out for the first time. But once I did, it gave me so much inspiration to it. Like, so basically achieving moderate success and just learning the drums gave me the fuel and inspiration to pick up a guitar. And then the rest followed from there. But like forming a relationship and figuring out that I could succeed, that I could get to the next level, whatever that achievement was, gave me the confidence to try it with multiple other instruments, piano, bass, getting into programming, learning how to like do engineering and production. And ever since, I want to get my hands on as many instruments as possible. But yeah, it all started with drums for sure.
Yeah, getting your hands on as many instruments as possible would probably be
Yeah.
fun as well, exploring your project with Fear of Water. I think
Yes,
the
yeah.
first EP come out in 2005. Tell us a little bit about how this project come about. And I know it was 15 a while ago now, wasn't it?
Right.
I'm getting old, man. Do my maths, but it was a damn while ago.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about starting this project and what was it like kicking off to begin with?
So Fear of Water has always been just the title that I give the expression of my own expression of art. It has never needed to be a band. It never needed to have recordings. Certainly I started early enough that I had no cognition of like commercializing this. It's just very early on I came to this concept of like Fear of Water is my own personal embodiment of me creating whatever I can with the tools at my disposal. And that is starting with like a literal like Tascam cassette 4-track recorder all the way up to what I'm doing today. There have been iterations throughout history where I have had musicians in my life be a part of bringing what I do to life, but then life gets in the way. People get married, people have kids, people move away, people can't, a lot of people struggle to live solely off of music. But I have, an actual band apparatus around Fear of Water has come and gone, but I've never stopped since I was in high school, and in terms of just making music and exploring more, working with bigger and better engineers and studios and producers, and then learning home production, and then going back to working with really great producers, and now doing all these collaborations. And it's just been really cool. It's a constant learning experience, including like, how does the industry work? How does publishing work? How does royalties work? It really has been like college, like music school for life kind of thing. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to continue to explore these different pathways and go through doors when I don't really know what's on the other side. And, with what's happening currently, my song with Codependent Parasites featuring Elias Soriano of Nonpoint has been doing incredibly well. It's been charting for the last 14 weeks. And it's crazy that like FM stations across the country have been embracing this song from, let's just call it what it is, a guy that they've never heard of before. I look at the SMR top 50, and it's like, my name is right there with like Metallica and Foo Fighters and Nickelback and Motionless in White and Blink-182 and Atreyu and Disturbed. And then like this guy out of Texas that you've never heard of before. And I'm okay with that. In fact, I'm like, there's like a rejuvenation about that. Like, it's exciting to see that truly independent music, no record label, no manager, like just good. And, good is a subjective term, but like these fans who I don't know, these program directors at these stations are making this decision. Like, yes, we like this song. We only have so much, airtime to play with, so much bandwidth. And all of these bands are putting out, both established huge bands and really amazing new bands with major label support, are putting out new music all the time. And I feel very thankful and grateful that these people and these organizations and these stations have made room for an independent artist that they have no reason to. No one owes me a favor. I'm not handing out like duffel bags full of cash and being like, hey, give me airtime. It's just like, people are believing in what I'm doing here. And I have the tremendous fortunate benefit of partnering up with musicians that I truly love, like Elias from Nonpoint, Aaron from Gemini Syndrome, Heidi Shepherd from Butcher Babies, Clint Lowry from Seven Dust, and Marcos Leo from El Nino, and many others in the works. So yeah, I'm really excited about everything that's going on right now.
That's beautiful, brother. This
Thanks,
is you're very inspirational. You know, for just DIY. You remind me of like, you know, an influence on me is Trent Reznor, where he had no band, he just went. You know, and it's just like you take what's ever appeared and you just go, and that's just beautiful, brother.
Trent Reznor early on was like my number one, my first and lifelong inspiration for this model that I'm pursuing. You know, I read in an interview very early on, like when I had Pretty Hate Machine, I read that he was a janitor in the studio that he recorded Pretty Hate Machine at, and that he was basically like scrub toilets to earn studio credit to make Pretty Hate Machine by himself, and then he figured out the rest from there. And that's kind of like a little bit, in a way, that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now. I'm not necessarily scrubbing toilets, but like I'm not a part of the like traditional machine. I don't have a band around me. I'm not currently touring. Like I've even had conversations with some potential managers who at the end of that conversation, they're like, you seem like a cool guy, and like I like the music, but you're not packaged enough that I can go sell you. Because a lot of these guys make money off of bands touring and selling albums and like, and that could be in my future. I'm very much so at this like fork in the road where it's like, do I again build a band around what I'm doing and pursue that, which would be amazing. But I'm also very much so of the mindset of like, you know, like Dayseeker just replaced their drummer. Bring Me the Horizon just had lost their keyboardist. The Smashing Pumpkins are looking for a guitar player. Like there's all these examples of these really great established bands, signed or not, but touring and prolific, recording new material, have an established fan base. Like my number one priority is I want to be a professional musician who performs and hopefully creates music for a living. Everything else is below that. If it's Fear of Water, amazing. If I still get to do Fear of Water, even if it's just in the creating and releasing of the music, but it never tours, I'm okay with that. Like I'm not in this like position of ego where it's like my art is fucking genius and it needs to be heard and I need to be the front man. Like I've worked my whole life to be where I am now, to create a multitude of opportunities, and I'm open to like what the universe throws at me. So it's a cool place to be in right now. I have no idea what's next, but like I'm happy with how it's going so far.
Yeah, and to be like have that solo project per se, and to collaborate with these great artists and people, like it does kind of open you up to kind of do what feels right, because you have these different elements in your music. You have this real rock sensibility and these pop hooks at moments and these really catchy heavy ass metal fucking riffs through it at different points. Do you feel like being the captain of your own ship and steering that, and then, you know, having these artists that you can collaborate for these certain tracks, go, oh, you know, Aaron be really good for this, and Heidi and then Clint and that, do you feel that creatively opens you up a lot more as well? Because you talked about bands, but you play with bands and you do other stuff as well anyway, a lot with Ra and things as well.
I mean, I have been in a, we'll just call it like a democracy in terms of like the creative process before, and it's cool. Like, and I'm sure you guys know, like it can also be like big time and sometimes the best music comes out of that struggle. And there's a part of me that yearns for that, and I will get back to that at a certain point. But to answer your question, I'm at this exciting threshold right now where, because of the success that I'm having with these collaborations, where I used to be writing like aspirationally, like, oh man, like as I'm writing this, Elias from Nonpoint would, you know, just pie in the sky, like, yeah, that'd be fucking cool if Elias did this song. And now I'm thinking like I can literally be writing songs with like Lejean from Seven Dust in mind, and then like make that happen. It's taken a fuck ton of work and networking and like earning credibility and like having people vouch for me and whatever to get to the point that I feel like I can, you know, make those calls, at least to like facilitate those conversations. But it's a true honor, and it feels like a privilege to know that I'm in a creative point where I could like literally be creating new music with specific performers in mind and like actually bring that to fruition. I think it's a rare position to be in for a lot of musicians. So I'm gonna enjoy that for a while before I like jump ship into like a more team democratic type setting.
Yeah.
At the moment, the state of the scene, I think you kind of the right thing as a solo artist to really push your music. As you said, Codependent Parasites is going great guns, and that Systemic track is absolute ripper. That one with Heidi's gonna, man, the music is unreal. So I think trying to keep pushing that music up, because unfortunately the state of the scene these days, it depresses me sometimes. Like even
dude.
it's like, because people aren't buying music like they used to, aren't buying albums, aren't consuming whole albums as a product. It's just crazy mad people like me that still do it, I suppose. But it's an absolute joy. So it seems to be the state of the way to push the music out. But people do forget, like being able to buy merch and support a band physically as well is such a huge part of it. Like you're talking about labels going, oh, it's sad that you're a solo act because I can't push you to play tours live, because basically they expect you to make a fucking album, give it to everybody for free, which I find ludicrous. And then hopefully people come and buy tickets to your shows. And it seems to be a bit broken to me. It doesn't seem like a model that really supports artists. So to be a solo artist and to work from home, great music, collaborate, kind of seems to cut out a bit of that bullshit at times. I don't know, it's a double-edged sword. It does my fucking head in sometimes. I don't know how we're going to or what we're going to do about it.
I think a huge opportunity that's being missed, and maybe, you know, I don't have relationships with Capitol or Warner. It's entirely possible that this is happening, but it's not happening at a level where we're bringing it up conversationally. But I think the idea of like getting a record label so you can spend $500,000 at the best studio in the world and then print 2 million CDs and expect like that business model is broken, and there absolutely is no coming back. Like that just has changed. So the fact that labels haven't fundamentally changed to provide a different value is kind of crazy to me. So a huge thing that labels should be focused on is licensing. And as an independent artist, I have been able to create music, put it into, you know, get accepted into certain music libraries, and or be hired specifically to do certain tasks. And like I've had music in multiple video games. A Milwaukee brewer used my music as his at-bat music. I've made music for professional wrestlers' entrance music. I've had music on Orange County Choppers, Cold Case, Deadliest Catch, shit like that. And like that's a good paycheck. And it's also kind of a win-win, because like Discovery Network wants something that sounds like Breaking Benjamin, but doesn't want to pay Breaking Benjamin money for something that's going to be playing for 15 seconds. And it's again, so they get a huge deal. I get mailbox money every quarter. And it's also fucking rad to just like turn on the TV and be like, holy shit, that's my fucking song right
dude.
there.
That's
man. Like, and I'm not like, there should be no compromising of your artistic value. I'm not saying that a band should like change who they are so they can be in the next Apple commercial. But the reality is that there's so much content and movies and shows and internet, whatever you want to call it, content that needs original art to help express the emotional tone of like what the director or creator is trying to say, that there should be virtually limitless opportunities, if managed properly, for, and let's say in this scenario, labels to facilitate the relationship with like Netflix and all these streaming sites that they're working with all these content creators, and like they should be facilitating relationships with YouTube to build music databases for their artists, and like start making money that way, you know, like licensing and usage rights. And it just seems like it's not enough a priority that we are speaking about it like it is a priority. You know, labels are still trying to push this idea of like, we're going to get you the record contract, you're going to record a world-class album, we're going to put you in a $3 million tour bus so you can play the biggest venues. Like that's not a reality for 99.5% of all artists on the fucking planet. So change, fucking evolve, like provide value for today's music community. So I don't know why, but they got to do that.
Oh, spot on. There's even like some of these big bands that are like pulling the plug as well, because it's not a viable fucking model, as you are saying too. Like, and soundtracks seems like a great way to go. You and Jim would probably have a lot in common in this, because you know, you doing that is maybe going into movies and doing that kind of stuff as well. Something you'd be looking at in the future.
I was going to say, I need to talk to you, Dave.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But the reality is that like it's as much as, you know, the term selling out gets thrown around. The reality is that people who are doing this professionally are doing it as their profession, meaning it is a fucking business. A business can have art integrity and like artistic value. So the idea of selling out immediately just it's so reductive to this thing of it's intrinsically bad. When the reality is that any artist who's doing this professionally should strive to be successful in the business component of this while still telling their story, speaking their voice, being authentic to themselves. So like, yes, you should be selling out.
Fuck that, I'll sell out Apple. What are we selling? Like, if they're paying for a new guitar, because fuck, everyone expects you to give your music away. Like, shit.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do, Apple? I'll do it. No fucking worries at all. Mean, like, I don't believe it's selling out either.
To truly not sell out, you would have to only distribute music through live performances for which you accept no money at a public venue. Like they would, like the economy would have to not exist essentially.
Have someone on a bike carrying your fucking amps and then everything.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
exactly.
You can't do anything these days without selling out to someone or something. Shit, unfortunately, it's the state of the fucking world.
Right.
But it's okay. Like you can do that with integrity, and you can do it in a way that's also mutually beneficial for multiple parties. You can do it in a way that raises up other artists. Like once you like that there's that saying of like, once you get through the door, don't close it behind you, you know, like help people get through the door as well. But it is an economic model for art. And like, we need to be more realistic and transparent about it instead of it being this holier than thou thing where it's like, hey man, if there's a price tag attached to it, this is bullshit. Dude, that's the reality. Like, this is how a lot of these people are feeding their kids.
Feeding their family, dude. I've spoken, you know, you guys both in the music industry, everybody has a fucking day job. Even Nicholas England from fucking the Halo Effect in Flames has a day job, because unfortunately, like, we would all love to be able to get paid to do this. We love it. We would put 100% into it. It would be great. But unfortunately, we've all got to have a day job to be able to fucking support this thing that we love, to be able to give back to the music industry, the music scene, to create albums, to create music, to spend the time in a studio making music, hitting up other artists with your product, going, have a listen to this. I'd love to, Heidi, get you on for this track as well, which was one day, which I am plugging at the moment as well. So that one does come out pretty soon as well. Tell us all about that track. I know it is not out for a couple of days, is it? Yeah,
comes out on the 27th.
27th.
So first and foremost, I just have to say that Heidi's contribution to this song is goosebump inducing. Like, it's, you know, she, for those who are not familiar with Butcher Babies, she is a larger than life, rip your face off fucking badass. And she's amazing in that hard rock metal scenario, and she brings it. She's great in the studio. She sure as fuck brings it to the stage. But there is a intimate, vulnerable side of her that she brings to this song that I think took it to its highest level of potential that it could possibly reach. The song is a kind of the story of my relationship that I have with my mother, where I grew up in a very abusive household, and my mom like rescued me and my brothers from that. I mean, it literally got so bad that it got to the point where my mom, like, my dad is this enormous human. He's 6'5", 350 pounds. He grew up in a super rage-filled home where discipline was doled out with. I'm not talking about spankings. I'm talking about like kicking the shit out of your fucking 7-year-old kids. When your fist is the size of their torso, kind of thing. Like, it, you know, objectively damaging shit. And my mom felt very powerless to do anything about it. And my brothers and I started getting older, and you know, the way that pit bulls get victimized, like, people look, because of all the dog fighting and that, they think it's a violent breed. It's not a violent breed. You take any dog and hit it in the face enough times, it's going to bite someone. And me and my brothers were growing up to be very violent young men. And we were taking at, my brother was my brother got like bullied in school for a brief period of time. And so he started like throwing bullies through trophy cases and shit. Like we're all very big people. And we'd have a lot of rage that we were not getting out because of what was happening at home. So we were taking it out on the people around us. And it got to the point where my mom was pretty convinced that one of us was going to try to kill my dad while he was sleeping. And more than likely, my dad would wake up while that was happening and show absolutely no restraint and then kill one of us. So literally just one day I came home from school and it was my mom and my two brothers. I'm the youngest. They were all waiting and they asked, I'm going to have one question for you. And the way that you answer is going to determine what we do next. And it was just, if I told you right now that you could go upstairs and pack 2 bags and we can leave and you never have to see your dad again, what would you say? And I was like, I didn't even know that was an option. Like, I just truly thought that this was forever. Like without a hesitation said yes. Both my brothers had done the same thing. We did that. We got in a car and disappeared. My dad didn't see us for 3 years. They eventually got divorced, but we just straight up disappeared. We were homeless for a while. Me, my brothers, my mom all ended up living with different families, like independent of each other for over a year, just to like, do whatever we could so until my mom could get back on her feet. But like all of that was more important than just getting the fuck away from my dad. So it was about the relationship that my mom and I formed during that time period, and our bond has gotten stronger through all of life. But just a reality of, so my dad like is dead to me, doesn't exist. I haven't talked to him in a decade. Like, but I've invested 2 parents worth of relationships into my mom. And for the longest time, I've had this, what my therapist calls anticipatory grief. I'm just have this harrowing cloud. I am mortified of the inevitability of her death.
Yep.
And like anytime I go to a funeral, I feel very selfish, but like my mind so quickly goes to this concept of like one day I'm going to be sitting here and it's going to be mom in the box. And it was really like profoundly affected me. And so I really explored, I was working with Sahaj Tickerton on this song, and I was explaining, kind of just gushing to him about like what I'm going through with all of this. And he really helped me like articulate this through music, both lyrically and instrumental wise. And yeah, so it's just about the like strength of that bond that was formed through terrible scenarios that made us stronger as a unit. But the unfortunate byproduct of, as the stronger that bond is and that relationship it is, the harder it is to conceive of the idea that like she is going to die and there's going to be an existence of mine that does not involve her. And it's an inevitability of life. We all lose our parents. Hopefully our parents die before, we do, but like, it doesn't make the suffering any worse. And I just, I'm so deeply connected to my mom that the feeling of just the inevitability of her death is like crippling for me. So anyways, this song is an exploration of those feelings and navigating that, and really trying to focus more on enjoying the time that we have together and being very thankful for how she saved me and my brothers and how we've been fortunate enough to have this very strong, like adult friendship as well, and just focus more on that and not be so consumed by an unfortunate thing that we all go through.
Good on your mum, first and foremost, man. I like.
She's a badass.
She's unreal, man. I know it would have been really hard. I can't, just to hear women have that strength to get up and just do what's right for their children as well. And I can see how close you and your mum are. Your earliest musical memory most is your mum.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right up until now, you can see she's a big part, and as someone like who didn't have an abusive father, but my mum had a never-ending string of abusive boyfriends, and it was. I know what strength it would have taken for your mum to get up and do the right thing for you. But going through all that, I can also understand your love of music. It would have been a big rock to you in that time as well. Someone to talk to, like per se, the music 100%. And to have Absolutely. That, to be able to dive into all these different genres. It was a tough time, but it also kind of made you the man and the musician you are today as well. So I really look forward to what the future will bring you, Dave, as well. And you did mention Sahaj as well. You spent time drumming with Ra as well, I believe.
So that's cool. So actually while creating this one day, and then several other songs, I was, as part of this like evolution of fear of water, I've been like, coming out of quarantine, I definitely got this like carpe diem feeling of like, oh shit, the world really can like end or at least like for all intents and purposes, shut down, move to a grinding halt. It's like life's too short, clock's ticking. Like I need to start, like I've always wanted this my entire life, but I need to like really step it up in terms of doing everything I can. I need to start pursuing the shit that is actually out of my immediate control. So that started with forming relationships and working with really great producers who can help narrow the focus of my creative vision and help me evolve and really put out the best thing that I can possibly do while still maintaining like that Fear of Water sound. And so we spent 3 weeks together in 2021 working on this music. And what's funny is that at the start of that session, he was like, what do you want to do with music? And I told him essentially what I've told you guys, is that this is kind of like my audio resume. And like, I want to have the catharsis and the creative release of creating music, but I'm really using this as a way to maybe like get into a different musical organization, like become a part of another band. And this was on the first day. And I remember very vividly him being like, yeah, it doesn't work that way. I was like, okay, whatever, let's make some music. And then at the end of 3 weeks, he was like, do you want to be the drummer of Raw? And I was like, fuck yeah. Like he was just very impressed by the well-rounded nature of my ability, but also like I lived at his house for the better part of a month and we coexisted, and he knew that I would be, cohabitable and chill on like a tour bus together. And yeah, I mean, that's, as someone who's been a big fan since the first album came out, like I was 16 years old when that first album came out. And if you told 16-year-old Dave that 36-year-old Dave would be playing the 20-year anniversary of this album on 3 different tours across the country, I'd be like, that's fucking bullshit. That's not going to happen.
That's a hell of a thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah,
crazy.
man. So it's been a treat, and I'm very appreciative for Sahaj seeing my potential and giving me a shot. And just, opening up doors for me and helping me also, bring Fear of Water music to life. And I really admire him, and I'm appreciative of his contributions to my journey.
Yeah, well, that would have been a cool tour. We did get to have a chat to Brian from the Union Underground and Tim from Soil as well. Tim from Soil as well, and Scott Ra and Floor as well. So it would have been a great great run of shows.
Yeah, that's such like a impactful time. I have so many specific memories tied to like those albums and like what I'm going through in life. Like I'm going through like, it's like the peak of my college and post-college days during when those albums are coming out. Like that's gonna be fucking rad. It's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun to dive back into them all. And what is a lot of fun is more music coming from you, mate. I really do look forward to everything. Hopefully get to have a chat with you in the future.
For sure.
One Day is next to drop. That is dropping 27th of February. Does feature Heidi Shepherd from Butcher Babies. Any last words, shout outs, or anything else you'd like to chuck in there?
I would just say that I am really appreciative of your guys' time, and like I said, as an independent artist with no true apparatus behind me, like opportunities like this to connect with people who are passionate about music means the world to me. And I would say the same to anyone listening, that like supporting independent art is really, really critical. Everything artistic that you like now was independent and unknown at one point. So like the ways that you can help independent artists are not a huge effort, but they go a long way. Literally buying a t-shirt at a show is the best possible thing that you can do to support an artist directly. Joining their Facebook community or Instagram, it takes almost no time, but like it can help them. Pre-saving songs can work the algorithm really, really good for like mid-level artists. Adding their music to your playlists, when that happens over and over again with lots of people, like it actually has quantifiable, tangible results. So I wanted to encourage people to connect with Fear of Water on all social sites, streaming and download sites, but also just know that like you are all in a position to keep independent art alive, and that's exciting. And I'm just very appreciative to be a part of that whole process, and it's really fun and exciting. So thank you guys for having me on and giving me a platform, and keep doing what you're doing, man.
Honored as hell, man.
I couldn't say it better. Everybody grab some Fear of Water, chuck it in the stereos, crank it up really fucking loud. The neighbors are gonna want to hear it. Cheers, guys. This has been the Bloody Legends. Like and subscribe. Do the same for Fear and Water. Support your scene. Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
Oi, you know what time it is? You're tuned in listening to Dry That Aussie Metal Guy. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his content when it drops. And remember, stay brutal, you mad dogs. Roof.